Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, today we're back working on the metal planer restoration and finally getting to the point where we're going to try to get some power put to this machine where we can actually test it out and really start making some chips with it. And to do that, I'm needing to put a motor on here where I can actually power the whole system. So if you remember on this machine, there's a couple of pulleys down below. There's actually two pulleys that power the table back and forth a stroke. There's a forward pulley and a reverse pulley, and they spin in different directions. And the way we switch between them is by shifting a belt from the overhead line shaft from where it's engaged one or the other using a tight loose pulley system. There's a half twist in one of the belts to get the reverse, and on the reverse stroke is actually reversing at a faster pace than the forward stroke. So to make all this work, I need to have a counter shaft mounted on this machine to run the belts down to the belts on the planer that actually power things. Now in the original factory setup, the way this thing would have worked is they would have had this counter shaft mounted up in a ceiling. It would have been powered to a line shaft, which is what powered the whole shop. You'd have one line shaft that was running with all these pulleys that went to different counter shafts. There was usually a belt shifting mechanism or a clutch mechanism in them to turn the counter shafts on and off, which basically was the on-off switch for the machine. And once those belts start turning, or that counter shaft starts turning, it powers the machine down to it. Now, because the way that I've got my shop set up, I'm really not ready to put a line shaft in here. I know a lot of people are saying, hey, it'd be really cool to put a line shaft in your shop. And yeah, it would be. And maybe one of these days we can get to that point. But right now, I'm just a little reluctant to do that because I'm still moving stuff around, making room for new equipment, what have you. In fact, I've already decided I'm going to move the planer again from where it's at now to a different location in the shop as things evolve around here. And the challenge when you have a line shaft and counter shafts and stuff mounted in the ceiling, if you want to move a machine, you got to move all that other equipment with it. It just kind of complicates matters. So instead of doing it that way, I think I'm going to actually mount the counter shaft to the machine itself and then power the counter shaft from a motor on the machine rather than from a line shaft. Still gives me the flexibility. If down the road I want to hook up to a line shaft, I can. But for right now, it gives me that flexibility that I need in my shop to be able to move some stuff around. So to get around this, I'm using an idea. This is not something that I invented or created. I've seen many planers that have been set up this way where they mount a motor and counter shaft on the machine. And I've got a bracket here that I have had cut out of steel. I drew this up. I actually looked at the way a couple of planers were set up back in the day that had them, the counter shaft up above them. And this is a design that I saw actually on Lance Balsley's planer. I helped him go get that machine probably a year and a half, 2 years ago. And it had it was actually a casting, a bracket that looked very similar to this that was mounted on the machine that had everything on there. It had a motor, counter shaft, the whole 9 yards. I like the way it looked. I like the design of it. So I'm really kind of copying that. And I am cheating a little bit here. You know, I've had several people tell me, oh, you need to make patterns and have these pieces cast. And yeah, it'd look cool, but you know what, guys? I'm ready to get this machine going, and I'm opting to just fabricate these pieces out of steel. And who knows, down the road, I may replace these with castings, but right now I just want to get the machine going, and it's going to be the quickest route for me to do that. So I took the pictures that I had from Lance's and I kind of drew them up. I actually drew them up on some cardboard. I came over here and did a mock-up. I made a couple of different tweaks to it to get it just right. Once I got the design like I liked it, I went into my office and using some CAD software, I was using Fusion 360, I drew up the design for what I wanted here. And then I sent that drawing, a DXF file, over to a friend of mine, Al Kimball, who has a shop up a couple hours north of me. He's in the fabrication business. He has a CNC plasma cutter. He took my DXF files and he cut out the pieces that I need to make these out of some 3/8" plate. And we're going to be fabricating those today. Right now, I've just kind of got one of the brackets just kind of clamped to the machine. It's not in its exact position, but it's pretty close. I just wanted to kind of see how it was going to look. I think it looks great. I think it's going right after what I want to do. First thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to drill 3 holes. You can't see the back, but this plate just kind of comes down. And so I have some clamping material in here. I'm going to drill 3 holes in here and put some through holes through this to just kind of sandwich this together, clamp it in place. place. There'll be a plate mounted on the top up here that the counter shaft brackets or the hangers for the counter shaft will actually mount to. There'll be a motor mount that goes in between them for my motor to go onto. So we got a good bit of welding and fabricating to do these. I'm also going to come in here with some pieces to kind of give it some more rigidity, and I got some what do you call them, the pieces that go up underneath the gussets, there you go. They go up underneath the plate to kind of give it some strength. So we're going to be fabricating all that. But first step, again, I want to locate my holes, go drill those in here, and then whenever we get them fabricated, I can come over here, transfer the holes to the machine, and get this thing mounted. Let's get at it. All right, I got my hole locations identified, and I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna put a 5/8 inch hole in this. I'm gonna start with just that's a 5/16 inch drill bit just to get a hole started. Then we'll go to the larger diameter. I'm over on my radial drill, and what I'm doing here is I've got this vise. It's just to get it up so I have some clearance for that drill bit to go under. That's the only reason I've got it on there. I just don't want to be drilling down into my drill table here. So let's come down here. I got center punches to get my drill bit lined up, and we'll drill away. Using the auto feed here. All right. I'm going to use a little bit faster feed rate on that one for the down pressure. There we go. All right. And one more hole right here. I'm gonna go ahead and do the other one, and then we'll go to a larger drill bit. All right, continuing on. Let's go down here. One. Two. All right. Just got a deburring tool here. I want to just hit each of these holes and just kind of clean that hole up, particularly on the back side where it drilled out. We'll do both sides though. Much better. Another piece that I had cut out for these was this plate, and that's going to mount on the top of these brackets that we had. And on this plate, I went ahead and drilled some holes in here, and this is where the line shaft hanger is going to mount. So it's going to sit on top of this. These hangers were really designed to hang from a ceiling. You would mount these from a ceiling and suspend your counter shaft or line shafts from them, but they'll support them in either direction. In this case, they're going to be standing up rather than hanging down, and they're going to mount to the top of these plates. So I am ready now to go ahead and start getting this assembled so that, or laid out so that we can start tacking it in place for welding. So I just got my plate laid down here on my welding bench. I got my upright. And what I'm going to start with is I'm just going to take, let's grab this. I'm going to take one of these mega squares from Fireball Tool. Really love this tool for doing this kind of layout work. And I'm just going to clamp this to there, and that will get everything lined up nice and square. I've got a smaller clamp here, 90-degree clamp, same type thing. I'm going to clamp it over here. And this will be just to kind of hold things in place until we get it intact. All right, next thing to do is get this lined up where I want it. I don't want to put this piece right down the center. I want to offset it, and the reason is we have the holes right in the center, so I need to have clearance for my bolts to come through here, room for a washer and a nut up underneath the bottom. So I'm choosing to basically just have it over about 1.5 inches on these ends. So let me just kind of bump this. I got a ruler over here. I put some lines on there, but I'm fine tuning it with the ruler. That one's right where it needs to be. And we got it lined up end to end here. There we go. All right. I'm going to get my welder set up, and we're just going to tack this in place. And I've also got some little gussets that I had cut out. And we're going to strategically place a few of these in here as well to give it some added strength and to give it some support side to side where it's just not across that thin bead. Later on, I'm going to put some pieces on the outside as well to give it some extra strength. Let me get the welder fired up and get it tacked in place. All right, I think we are ready to tack this in place. I'm just going to use my MIG welder. And right now, my whole thing is I'm just tacking it. I'm not welding it. I'm just kind of getting everything tacked in. So let's start right here on the ends. All right, that should hold it in place for me to take these pieces off here. I'm gonna take one off right now. And first thing I'm gonna do is we got a little gusset right here. And I am going to, I think, put this behind it while I kind of tack it in place. Okay. That ought to hold everything in place. With these parts kind of tacked in place, I brought them back over to the metal planer and we just put them up on here, and I took some clamps and kind of clamped them in place where they need to go. Took me a little while to get them all adjusted, so you know, we got measurements from the front back here on both sides so they're in the same position, same height, and then I also put a level going across each one of these, plus put a parallel across here, leveled it going across there, bumping it around with a dead blow hammer until I got everything pretty much leveled up almost perfectly on my stair at 98 levels, which is what, 3 or 5 thousandths per foot. So I mean, you know, for what it is, these are dead nuts on. I'm not too worried about that. And I've just got them clamped in place right now. What I'm going to do is get a transfer punch, and we're going to transfer the holes in here, and we will come back and we'll drill and tap these holes for some bolts to go through. These are what, 5/8 inch holes through here, so we will have some 5/8 inch bolts that basically just sandwich this all together and hold it in place. I also want to make some measurements or marks on here so that I can do a little bit more of putting some things on here. What I'm going to do is get some band iron, and we'll come down these here and kind of tie into the back plate here. I got to see if I can find a piece of metal I like, but I may put a kind of a flat that goes on here and kind of tie that all in, and that'll give me some more rigidity, having a little piece of metal coming around on the uprights. And anyway, I think it'll look a little bit nicer too, just give it a little bit more depth to it. But I like it. I think this is going to be fine. I like the way these are laid out. I like the way they're looking, and they're going to serve their purpose well. So I'm going to get these marked up, and we'll go in there and do some more welding. Also get these holes put in here. I've got a set here of transfer punches. These are larger transfer punches from 1/2 inch up to 1 inch. And if you're unfamiliar with transfer punches, I've talked about these before, but these are all punches that are by fractional sizes, 64th inch increments, and they have a center punch in the very center of them. And the purpose of these is when you need to transfer a hole punch. So I've got a hole here. I know these are 5/8 inch holes, and I need to transfer the very center of that so that I can drill this out to match these parts. So I'm just going to take that punch, it fits the hole perfectly, so that that's going to give me a nice center punch in the very center of that hole to drill that hole through. And like I said, we can use any size in 64th inch increments here with this set. So take it in there. We'll just go around to all of them. There we go. And yep, we got a nice center punch in each hole. I'll do the same on the other side. So now that I've got everything confirmed where it needs to be, I'm happy with how this is tacked. We're going to go ahead and weld this in place. So anyway, we're just going to put it all in here. All right, I don't think that's going anywhere. We'll do the other one. I've got my brackets over here now mounted back up on the machine after we welded everything in real good, and I just got them quickly leveled back up. It really didn't take much because the holes pretty much got them where they needed to be. But we're continuing on. There's still a few things I want to add to these to get them finished on out. And the first of that is I want to put some tabs on here to kind of sit on this bracket here. It's just going to kind of rest it on there. So I want to weld these on, and now that I've got it bolted in place, I know exactly where it needs to be. I'm going to tack these in place. I got one for there, and I've got one for right down here. I want to get those tacked in place. We're going to put an additional screw through this lip here, and that will just give us a little bit more strength and stability. Once that is done, I want to run some ribbing down from the top down to these brackets. Same thing here, kind of bend these around the corners. And again, that'll give us more rigidity. It's pretty rigid, but that'll just kind of stiffen things up. Plus, it'll kind of give it a little bit more of a 3D look here, make it look more like a casting. It's not going to ever be a casting, but we want to just have a little bit more depth. I think it'll look a little bit nicer on the machine and match the cast iron on the machine a little bit better. So anyway, I got my welding rig out here, and we're going to tack those in place. So one thing I'm going to do is, normally when I'm welding with my little Lincoln Electric Power MIG 210 here that I use all the time, I'm running on 120 or 220 volts, so I got a 220 volt cord. I'm back here in the back of my shop. I don't have a 220 volt outlet back here, but no big deal. The cool thing about this particular welder is that it comes with plugs for both 220 volt as well as 110 volts. So I can plug this in to a regular 20 amp 110 volt circuit, just like you have in your house, and it'll weld. Now, granted, you would prefer to be in 220 volts. You're going to have more power on 220 volts. But all I'm wanting to do right now is just tack these pieces in place, and I'm going to take those plates back off. We'll weld them back up in yonder at the welding table. But nice feature to have for those cases where you just need to plug in someplace else and do some quick work. This is auto sensing, so it'll automatically sense my voltage that I'm plugging in with. Turn it on. I may have to go through the setup here, I'm not sure. Let's see. So do MIG, set up there, my wire size. It says 10 gauge is the thickest that it's going to weld here because we just don't have the amps. But again, for tacking, that's going to be fine. We'll put it on its maximum. and we're ready to go. Let me get my gloves and welding hood on, and we'll tack those in place. Start up here, get this one where I want it to be. I'm just going to hold it in place, and we'll tack it on. Yeah, helps if you turn your gas on, guys. I think those will hold fine. I get them in yonder, and we can weld them in place better, but that'll be fine. I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side, and we'll be back. So you can kind of see where we're at here. Got our tabs tacked in place, and like I said, I want to put some ribs in here just to kind of give this a little bit of a 3D look, and this will help stabilize things even more than what they are already. So I've just got some strips of metal cut here, and we're going to weld them in and kind of follow these upright areas, kind of like thus, and I'm just going to weld those in place, and we'll do the same thing over here. We're going to have to bend these to match these curves, so it'll be a little more complicated, but kind of see where I'm going here. All right, let me get the welder set back up over here, and we'll tack those in place. Got a piece of metal cut here that's going to start down here in the bottom, and it's just going to kind of bend around and go up in the top. I should have it pretty close to the right length. May have to trim it up a little bit when we get up in there, we'll see. But I'm gonna just go ahead and start by tacking this in, and we'll use a torch to heat it up and just kind of bend it gently around that curve. So let me get suited back up here. All right, we're just starting this bend, but I got it good to about right back in here. So I'm gonna go ahead and tack that in place so we don't bend it any further right there. All right, I'm pretty happy with how that bent. The only thing I need to do is just straighten that up just a little bit up there. And that looks good. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and tack that in the rest of the way. I'm going to tack that in place. And with that, I think we're ready to weld this in. Well guys, I'm running out of time for this video, but I've pretty much got one of the brackets welded up, and now I've still got a little bit more cleaning up to do to it, some grinding, and just kind of making these welds smoothed out and look a little bit nicer than what they do now. Then we'll paint it and actually get it mounted on here. But I think you can see the look I'm going after now. So we've got the kind of ribs in here. Surprisingly, this makes this thing a lot more stable because we got that little bit of ribbing in there to keep it from kind of, before when I took my hand, it was pretty solid, but you could feel some vibration in there just by bumping it. This little bit of ribbing really stiffened this whole unit up tremendously, and I'm real happy with that. And I think that once I get these bolts going in here right beneath these is going to give us even more stability and keeping it from flexing at all. I really like the look here with that channel look in there. Again, it just kind of gives it more of a 3D look, more like a casting. I may try to come in here with some body filler and kind of put a pretty large radius down in here, kind of, and smooth those welds up and cover them up, hide them, but again, giving it more of that casting look, having that nice fillet in there. I'm gonna play around with that and see if I can pull it off without really creating a lot more work for me. But all in all, I'm very happy with how these have turned out. Probably next time you come and see this video, I'll have these all completely done, mounted up, and we'll get started working on getting the counter shafts, the pulleys, the motor mount, all that. There's a motor mount going to be incorporated into this design as well, which I haven't even started on yet. But I think you can kind of see what we're going after here. And again, I'm very happy with how this thing is looking so far. Well guys, that is going to be a wrap on this episode. As always, thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I know you guys have heard this a million times, but if you are a new person, we would appreciate that subscribe and hit that bell icon up there so you get notifications when new videos come out, and comments are always appreciated. And guys, we'll catch you on the next video. Thanks for watching.